What does God ask of me? Well, what does God want me to do? But what if I don't do what God wants me to do? These are the questions and some of the topics we're going to talk about in today's episode in Faith in Today's World. Hi, I'm Kevin Van Hall.
Hello, I'm Duke Lackey.
Alex Parker.
And that's Reverend Duke Lackey and Reverend Alex Parker. And there's some titles going along with you two. I know, Duke, you don't like to say doctor. Duke Lackey, and Alex Parker is working on his. So
Congratulations. That's exciting. That's exciting.
I don't know how.
I don't want to brag, but I am a lord. My son bought 1 foot by 1 foot square land in Scotland. So I'm a landowner in Scotland, so that makes me a lord. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, congratulations. But in this podcast, it means a little something different.
Yeah.
So we'll stay with that. And in this podcast, you guys joined me last week. We try to talk about the issues that are facing us today. Very trying times. People are doubting, questioning their faith, role of themselves, role that God has for them, God's plan for us. We've tried to talk about this before. A lot of this is going to just be beyond our understanding. We're going to say that right out front. We don't have all the answers. It's tough. We're going to try to help you through it a little bit through just some experience and some wisdom that we've gained. So last 2 weeks, we've been talking about spirituality and really what that is and how that is our connection with God, because God lives in the spiritual world, can live in the physical world, Jesus with us, but we have to try to reach out to God and have that relationship with Him in that spiritual sense. But physically, what does God ask us to do? What does He want us to do when we're here on earth? So often, we just want to break it down to the 10 commandments. We want to put it on a piece of paper, plaster it on the wall in our schools. Is that enough?
Following rules is easy. Following rules is relatively easy compared to having a changed heart.
Okay.
Yep. Transformation is the goal, and you're not going to get that by just like a wooden reading of the text or just following. I want to say just like in a rote way, there's something deeper going on.
Yes,
To follow rules, the rules are absolutely important. The frame, having a framework and a guideline. Studies show that children that have clear boundaries they feel safer. They're freer to explore. They just do better. So giving children clear boundaries is one of the greatest things you can do as a parent.
Yeah.
And what the gifted is, when they become teenagers, they can butt up against those boundaries because that's what teenagers do.
Yeah.
So when I was a teenager, the boundary was short hair. Well, I butted up against that when my girlfriend liked long hair. My dad said, no, you got to have short hair. I had long hair. And so I busted that boundary. So to bust a boundary of hair length is one thing.
Yeah.
If my parents were to say, marijuana's okay, but stay away from the LSD.
Yeah.
That boundary, it's kind of far away. And breaking that boundary can lead to some real trouble. So good boundaries is really, really important for all of us to begin with.
Yeah, and Jesus knew this, right? Jesus takes the 10 commandments and just goes deeper, right? It's not just the letter of the law, which we do have to have. Duke is absolutely right. But it's also the spirit of the law. So do not murder, one of the 10 commandments. But Jesus says, I say to you, if you have hatred in your heart, so we can talk more about that. But the boundary thing, absolutely true. I have 2 young kids. They will play more freely on the playground that has a fence.
Yes.
Okay.
They feel safer and more free within the parameters, and studies show that as well. So the boundaries do matter, and the boundaries can lead to life. It can also lead to legalism. We'll talk about that, but the boundaries can lead to life.
Right. Well, we talked about that in previous podcasts. We start off in our spiritual journey in that simplicity mode of first learning
Right.
And then we move into doubting, and then complexity and
perplexity and doubting.
perplexity.
Where's the meaning in all of this?
And where do I go
That's where
from
we are.
here?
Yeah, that's where we are.
When you dive deeper into it, it becomes a struggle sometimes. We've talked about spiritual growth in our religion, faith in today's world. A lot of people check out. I don't understand it. Doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather just not believe in a God that when this evil person seems to be doing better and successful while there's other people starving on the street, when God has the ability to change it. We talked about the God of the big O's. Right? It is a little bit hard. So what does God want from me? Well, Jesus didn't just expand on the law. He actually, summed it up, right? Didn't he try to make it
Yes,
even
he did.
simpler? What did he
He
say when
did.
he said even simpler?
It hangs on these two things, right? Love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself.
So all the commandments could be summed up in that, right?
That's exactly right. And so the I would say, I don't know, Alex, correct me, the
No,
Calvinistic
come on, dude.
understanding of God has a plan for your life.
Yeah.
I believe God has a plan for our life.
Yeah.
But that can be taught in a way that God has every decision I make is going to be a decision whether I'm in God's will or not God's will. I don't believe that. I believe God's plan is that we love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and we love our neighbors, we love ourselves.
Yep.
That's God's plan for every person. Now, I can live that out in 1,000 different ways and still be in the will of God. I made the decision to be a pastor, felt the call, the church confirmed it. I lived 41 years serving a church. If I would have decided to have been a banker, I could still have loved God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loved my neighbors. I loved myself. And God would have been just as pleased with me. I don't believe that God has a specific plan for your life, and then every decision is a decision. Am I in God's will or not in God's will? I like what Jesus said to Nicodemus. A blind man coming to Nicodemus, and Jesus says, Nicodemus? Not Nicodemus, Bartimaeus. Sorry, Bartimaeus, blind man, comes to Jesus, and Jesus goes, what do you want? He asked a blind man what he wanted. You would have assumed he would want to see, right?
Yeah.
Well, Bartimaeus could have said, I'd like a thicker mat. When I beg, if a thicker mat would be a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all he wanted. I think God cares about what we want.
Yeah.
And I think that Jesus worked with that.
Yeah. Well, God's plan, we don't always know it. We don't always understand it. We've taught to accept it. Jesus accepts it. This time of year is Lent. Holy Week is coming up.
Yep.
Palm Sunday. Jesus enters the town of Jerusalem as the new Messiah and the new King, and before the week is over, is crucified. And he prays hard that God would change God's plan, but he accepts God's will in the end. He shows us right there the sacrifice of love. And continuing on with God's plan, we don't take that example to heart, do we? I mean, we look at this and then we don't accept it. Jesus accepted it, and we say we're believers in Jesus, but we don't accept it. So where am I supposed to, or what am I supposed to do? What is God asking of me? I pray God's will be done. But if I don't know what it is, how do I do it? Or do I know what God's will is?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to Duke's point, we follow a person, not a plan. And because we're Wesleyans and because we believe in prevenient grace, wherever we go, God has gone before us. And so I think the whole will plan conversation is just, how do I take the next best step? How do I love the person in front of me? How do I be the best parent, be the best friend, be the best, whatever your situation in life is. And so for me, to not be so hypothetical about it, my day is pretty much, how am I the best dad that God's calling me to be to these two boys? And how can I be the best husband? And how can I be the best pastor? And I don't mean best in worldly terms. I mean the most faithful is a better way to put it. And the way I think about that is, am I a person who lives into the baptismal covenant that I proclaimed, right? Do I resist evil, injustice, and oppression? Do I follow Wesley's general rules? Do I do everything I can to do no harm, to do good, and stay in love with God? And that's enough. That's enough to structure my day. And if I'm doing those things, then I'm in God's will. And if I'm not, then I guess I'm outside of it. But it's not like, yeah, it's like Duke talked about. It's not like this GPS thing. If we take the wrong turn, then we're going to the wrong place. We can never go wrong per se because God's always with us. We make wrong choices, but God redeems those and gives us free will in those decisions.
Yeah. The walking day by day, that's the spirituality is it's a lot about discernment.
Mm-hmm.
So I agonize. I look at what's happening in our society. I look at the war that's taking place, and it can so easily become all consuming and overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It's too big. I can't fix it. I can't stop it. I try to think back to Wesley and his day in the 18th century with the Industrial Revolution. Nobody was going to stop the Industrial Revolution coming.
Mm-hmm.
And the Industrial Revolution meant people were moving off the farms, moving into very close quarters, poverty, filth, gambling, prostitution, alcoholism, just tons and tons of problems. And nobody was going to stop that. That came in.
Yeah.
But Wesley came in and says, "Oh, how can we love God and love our neighbor? Let's get together in small groups.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how we can do good among one another.
Yeah.
Let's see how we can do good in our in our sphere of influence. There's a prison system that's corrupt and horrible. Let's see how we can help improve the prison system."
Yeah.
And so there's the huge events that are taking place in the world that are taking place, and they're taking place.
Yeah.
But what can I think, Alex, that's beautiful. What can I do today to love God and love my neighbor who's in front of me right now? And that focus is life-giving, I believe.
Yeah.
Right.
And, even at Pleasant Green, where I'm serving as the pastor, right, we think about the cross. There's the vertical dimension of the cross, your relationship with Jesus, that matters. Of course it matters. There's the horizontal dimension, your relationship with your neighbors. So very practically, like immigration, big topic, that's the whole thing. I can't fix what's going on with the immigration system. I think what ICE is doing is deplorable, right? So there's all these things. But what I can do, last Sunday we had an immigration workshop, Know Your Rights. We had 13 people come, and it was basically like, this is what's happening. It's a wild, wild west out there, it seems like, but these are the rights, and these are the things you should know about. And we serve a refugee population at this church. So what can Pleasant Green do, right? In Orange County, North Carolina, we can put up signs that say, private, simple things, right? And so we're not going to change the whole system, but how can we be aware of what's going on and what's our role and our influence in that?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to read a little bit from the Old Testament and then a little bit from the New Testament to give a perspective. So often the Old Testament we want to think of as a different God, and then we say it's really not. Jesus comes with a new covenant. It's a little bit of maturing of the faith. We'll just say the Old Testament were small little children.
Say that slowly. What's the difference between Old Testament and New Testament? It is a maturing of the faith.
There you go.
It is so faith matures. Individuals, our faith matures. Society-wise, what's the word for that? Faith matures.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you look at the history of Israel, we see the revelation of God to the people of Israel over thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that God changes. Israel's understanding of God, it matures.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so important. I think it's so important that you don't look at the Bible as a monolith. As Dan McClellan says, univocal. It's not univocal. It's over a long period of time. You got to put it in context.
Mm-hmm.
You do. And we've talked about that before, literal translations versus the entire message.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Micah was a prophet back during the early days.
Yeah.
He was, around Isaiah, Hosea, era when the northern kingdom was being taken over. He was in the southern kingdom, didn't like what he was seeing, just like all the prophets didn't like what they were seeing, trying to speak out and trying to put forth the message of what we were supposed to be doing as a people. Alex and Duke, you talked about what are we supposed to do as a church, right? What are we supposed to do as an individual? Those are actually a little bit different, but the same. But Micah tries to make it easy. And he says, I'm in chapter 6, verse 8. He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? Well, to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. So when we say walk humbly and justly, when we see injustice going on in the world, are we supposed to try to stop it versus say, I can't do anything about this? How far are we supposed to go when we see the injustice in this world?
I think that takes discernment. I think, Alex says, what can I do? We can tell people, give people awareness of their rights. We can be in relationship with community. When I went to D.C., a Methodist church out of Durham says, we have a preschool program with immigrants, kids in there. We had a fence that you could see through. We closed the hole so that ICE agents can't come and see who's playing in there to see that immigrant kids are playing. As it was an expense, but God, doesn't it break your heart to think have to do that? They said they made a safe room. They made a safe room that if ICE agents came, they could take the kids, lock it up, and lock the kids and put them in a safe room. It just makes me want to cry just to think about that.
Right.
That this is what we in the church have to do for our children.
Yeah.
So are we learning anything from history? I mean, faith in today's world, we're still dealing with a lot of the issues that we've dealt with for thousands of years, where to the rich are oppressing the poor, to where one race or group scapegoats and blames the other one. Right now, it seems like everything is blamed on the illegal immigrant. Not too long ago when Europe and Germany was struggling, they wanted to scapegoat the Jews. Everything was the Jews' fault as to why we see things repeating themselves. I'm a big historian. I love history because it's amazing how we just don't learn from it. We don't want to.
Well, that's why Jesus says the poor will always be with you. He's not prescribing that as a good thing. He's describing the fallenness of our humanity. We're always going to structure our society where a few have everything and most have little to nothing. That's part of our fallen human condition.
Right. It's there's never enough.
No.
You got $400 billion and it's a race to be a trillionaire. There's a race going on among the billionaires. And again, I'm trademarking this phrase, Alec. Billionaires are wanting to become billionaire-ier.
I like that.
It's a race to trillion. You know.
Yeah. Well, what does Jesus say about a rich man? It's
hard
to get into heaven.
It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle.
Yes. You have to justify that in front of God. So we talked about walk justly with God, justifying that. We've talked about justified by faith is a big part of Paul's message in the Protestant. We're giving a Methodist point of view. Both of you guys being Methodist pastors, we believe you're justified by faith. What does that mean? And does that mean I can act however I want to, or are sacraments important?
So what happened?
Duke, Alex said, "Go ahead."
Oh yeah. So as United Methodists, we do believe that God's grace comes and invites us to a point where we can say, just like Jacob said when he was running away because he stole his brother's birthright and blessing. He woke up. He had a dream where angels were climbing a ladder, descending and descending to heaven. He wakes up and goes, God's here. God's here. We believe that God's grace brings us to a point where we can open our eyes and say, God's in the midst of this. And we can say yes to God. That's not the end. That's just the beginning point. We believe that once we say yes to God, then each day we are invited to be transformed into the likeness of Christ in our own unique way. That saying yes is only the beginning, it's not the end. The goal is not, "Ooh, I'm going to heaven." The goal is, can I look more like Jesus tomorrow than I do today?
That's right. That's right.
So that's a different understanding of salvation. And as Ashley used to say, this is how, we speak Christianity with a Methodist accent.
So,
Yeah. I agree. I mean, look, the most succinct way that I can put it, right? These are big theological terms, but we should know them as Wesleyans, and for those listening, right? Justification is what God does for us. We don't add to it. We can't earn it. We don't conjure it up. It's not willpower. It's not if you do this, then that. It is completely what God does for us. Free. Right?
free.
There's no meritocracy in justification.
It's already being done.
It's being done. And it was done on the cross.
It's already
Right?
done.
When was I
Right.
saved? On the cross.
Right.
2,000 years ago, yeah.
Sanctification is what God does in us. Because we've been justified, what God does for us, sanctification is what God does in us, right? Remember, the word salvation really means healing, or to make us whole, right?
Oh, that's
So we become whole, right? Because God has saved us, God is doing something in us. So it's not faith or works, it's works are a byproduct of Christ's faith on our behalf, if that makes sense.
Right. It does. It does. Jesus even says, if you love me, you would obey my request, my rules, what I've asked of you. And that's pretty much God says it's our way of showing our love of God is to walk humbly and justly with him, following his rules. It's
so the only new law that Jesus gave us was, I command you to love one another. And so he commands us to love. So Jesus is not talking about a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about a way of being in the world. And the way we know what love looks like is we look at the life of Jesus.
Yep.
That's why I get so upset with the Christian nationalists, is they never quote Jesus.
Nope.
They never talk about Jesus. They pull passages from the Old Testament and from Paul, and it just kind of fits their politics.
Mm-hmm.
And they said Jesus, but they never talk about Jesus. They never say, "Oh, Jesus welcomed outcasts and sinners. Jesus touched the unclean. Jesus prioritized the weak and the lost and the last." They never use that language.
Well,
Right.
you guys are older than me, so you can correct me here, but it has to be at least the last 25 years, right? Probably longer than that. We have a political climate in which the far right has convinced people that the most important and salient issues are abortion and gay marriage.
Right.
Now, we're not doing a podcast about that right now, but I just read the Gospels and I don't see those as the most important issues.
Correct.
I don't think they're unimportant, but I just don't see them as being at the forefront of who Jesus and
the biblical literalists never talk about usury. Never talk about charging interest. That's probably the number one commandment against in Scripture. Don't charge interest. That's all through the Scripture. That was all through the early church.
Yeah.
And the fundamentalists and literalists will never talk about that.
Right.
The year of Jubilee, redistributing all the wealth. They will never talk about that.
No. Every 7 years, or the 50-year Jubilee.
Every 50th year, we start over.
Start over again.
Yeah.
We'll talk about gay as abomination, but we won't talk about that, or men shaving, or my one I like to say is in those 10 commandments, which they want to plaster on the wall, says, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. In God's Sabbath, it is Sunday. Nowhere in the Bible, the gospel, or anything else gives us the right to just decide that we want to change it to a different day. But we take the spirit and the meaning of it is in a day of rest. It's just not constantly work and push everyone to work for greed and money. And we can interpret that in a different way. So the far right fundamentalists can agree on that and say, okay, my Sabbath is going to be different than the Jewish Sabbath on
Yes.
Saturday, and we're going to do it on Sunday. They can interpret that, but they can't interpret any of the other rules in the Old Testament.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Kevin. I never thought about that.
We need to just look at everything as a whole. We talked about Jesus past podcast, believing in Jesus, following Jesus.
Mhm.
There's a difference.
Mhm.
And there's a problem there in the Christian religion today and faith in today's world of people following Jesus versus saying, I'm a believer in Jesus. Well, okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Satan
Yeah.
believed in Jesus too when he took him out to the desert and
He did.
tempted
He
him.
sure did.
The demons believe in Jesus when they came upon him. What do you want from us? They were scared. They believe in Jesus. So you're putting yourself in that group versus saying, by just saying you're a follower of Jesus, you're in that same group versus saying that you are a believer, a true believer in Jesus and want to make this world
seeking to follow the teachings and example of
be a better place for everyone, Now, Monday, Thursday, Jesus' mandate. I'll clarify that since we brought it up. It's in John 15, verse 12. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. So again, his example, he's asking you to love each other as I have loved you. I've shown you what I want you to do. Follow me. Do as I ask. He doesn't ask anybody to do anything that he didn't do himself.
Yep. That's leadership. That's leadership.
It's the kind we really need today.
He knelt down and took on the role of a servant and washed people's feet.
So what if I don't do what God asks of me? What if I just feel like it's just too much and I can't handle it? And some people just want to give up and quit. Is there still hope?
Oh, there's absolutely hope. There's absolutely hope. I believe that God understands being overwhelmed.
Okay.
That God understands isolation. We live a very isolated life. It's easy to go through, especially as a retired person, I can go through a week and never talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. If I didn't take initiative to get out of the house and talk to, I could sit in the house and never interact with anyone. And that isolation can lead to despair. And I think that is a very real thing, and we shouldn't condemn people who are in despair. But can we offer a way to build community? Stephen, I mentioned this while we were talking before. Stephen Covey says, he talks about that we have a sphere of concern, and my sphere of concern is worldwide. I'm concerned about what's going on in the world. But my sphere of influence is drastically smaller. Right? My sphere of influence is drastically smaller. And it can feel like, well, what does it matter? Kevin, you want to answer that question? When someone says, what does it matter what I do? Does it matter what I do, Kevin?
It does.
Talk about it in terms of voting, maybe.
It does matter. We can make a difference. Small difference. We talked about this. God works in the shadows. He wants us to help start off small, just helping your neighbor. Just a small task. It actually matters. It actually helps that person. And that's the way we're supposed to give witness. I don't know. That's what I believe. That's what you guys have taught me in the past 8 years, my relationship with you guys, is it does matter how we're supposed to go through our life and how we're supposed to live our lives, because we might not see it, Duke, but it might make a change. I mean, Alex, you're out there preaching right now. You might not see it, but I guarantee you there's people, you have parishioners right now that you're making a difference to.
Right. So I'm not going to toot my own, if you don't toot your own horn goes untooted.
Oh, well, here we go with the ego stuff, right?
That's right. That's right. But someone asked why you do something good. Well, I do it so the world, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to change much. But what I do is I do it so I won't be changed. And so there's some small things. There's some things that I do. I compost. Right? Every day I take food scraps. I put them in a can. Once a week I take the cans out and put it in my composter, and I mix them up, and I do that. Now, what difference is that? All of the trash it's made in Jamestown, North Carolina, what difference is that one little can going to make every week? Well, not. Is it going to make any difference? Well, it makes a difference to me. that I'm doing this little thing, hopefully that'll make a difference. I chose to spend money on the cheapest all electric car I could find. I save about 20, 30 gallons a month, $90. Compared to the cost of the car, that's nothing. But I'm not burning fossil fuels.
Mhm.
And what difference? But it matters to me.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so we make these decisions daily because I don't want this world. I don't want to be shaped by the world. As Alex said, I want to be shaped by the gospel.
Mhm.
I want to live faithful to my baptismal vows. I want to be faithful at the table of our Lord and inviting other people to the table of the Lord. And these decisions that we make can help structure our days, can help structure our life, so that we live with an eye toward the kingdom of God as opposed to what's going on all around us.
Mhm.
Right. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think getting where the rubber hits the road practices, right? Duke talked about the composting and creation care. That's important. For me, we've talked about this before, but tithing, right? I just mentioned the fact that there are those that think abortion and gay marriage are the main topics of the gospel. They're not. Money is a big topic in the gospel, and
It's
I think, yeah,
most used is
exactly.
probably the most important topic of Jesus.
That's right. So for me, like, I, you know, look, I'm not pinching pennies, but I'm not, making tons of money either, and I'm good with that. It would be easier, I think, to not tithe, right? And I sometimes I ask, like, what difference is my tithe making in this church or in the conference? But again, it's the wrong question, right? Tithing makes sure that I'm in alignment with God. And so it's a spiritual discipline, right? Everything's expensive. Gas is expensive, daycare is expensive, but Mallory and I still choose to tithe because we're giving
Right.
we're giving to God first. And like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want that sort of alignment in my life, and I'm not going to ask parishioners to do it if I don't do it, right? So what difference does it make long term? I don't know. But it's the spiritual discipline, and we keep coming back to the spiritual disciplines, this being one among many.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm going to bring up one last subject that I want us to talk about here as we start coming up on 30 minutes of the podcast here. Don't want to hold everyone or lose anybody's interest, but we talk about, it says also walk humbly with God. Walk.
Yeah.
Walk with God. We've
Yep.
talked about this. God wants us to have a personal relationship with him, does he not?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course.
I like to talk in terms of this isn't original with me, of course. Nothing's original with me. But what is the discernment, the practice of discerning
Mhm.
where is God working in the world
Mhm.
comes with a question of how can I cooperate with what God is already doing?
Mhm.
We go to God in prayer. We haven't got to talk God into doing anything. In spiritual formation, we're assuming that God is already at work in the world,
Mhm.
and the invitation is for us to join in what God is doing.
Mhm.
And that walking humbly is a sense of, okay, how can I discern where God is working? What are the gifts that God has given me? And how can I join in loving God and loving my neighbor? How can I do that on a very practical day by day level?
Right. Personal relationship with
Yeah.
Jesus or God. However, some people, my mother used to love to pray to the saints. Alex, is that spiritual journey, is that prayer, that personal relationship with God the most important or one of the most important things? Where does it rank in our faith?
Well, for me, it's pretty high, right? I think it keeps me
Yep.
grounded, right? So, by personal relationship, I don't mean privatized, right? I have a
Right.
personal relationship with Jesus. I read the
Right.
scriptures. I go through the lectionary sometimes. I'll have the shelf above me. I've got this kind of prayer companion, a lot of different things, whatever you do, but it keeps you grounded in the story of the gospel, in the person of Christ. But then that's not for myself alone, that's to lead me out into the community, right? Again, that vertical dimension feeding the horizontal dimension. But of course, we have to have a
Right.
personal relationship with God.
So feelings, we like to think of ourselves as rational people.
Yeah, we're irrational.
We are feeling people.
Yeah.
Our feelings will overtake the rational part of the brain every time.
Yeah.
And so mysticism is the language of an encounter with the holy.
Uh-huh.
And some people are just in tune with that right here, right now, constantly. Some people are just not wired that way.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've got to recognize that. But the Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus had an encounter with Christ, the resurrected Christ, that transformed everything he did. And so that sense of how do I encounter the holy with whatever level that I'm created to encounter the holy, and to make that encounter to be it is the driving force. So when I'm in a desert time in my life, and I'm wondering, where's God? Does God care? Does God exist? We all ask those questions.
Yeah.
I can go back and think, here when my mother passed, when my mother died when I was 15, God showed up. When I was going through depression, God brought these people in my life to help me walk through it. And so during the desert times, I can kind of have a touchstone of God. There are moments when I felt close to God.
And this personal relationship, Kevin, it, again, it allows me to engage the world in an informed way. I care about what's going on in Iran. I care about the state of our country. I care about the political system and all of these things. But having a personal relationship, being in community, all of these spiritual disciplines, they allow me to engage in a way that doesn't lead to despair. Because I'm yoked to a bigger story, right?
Right. Exactly.
Philippians 4, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all, for the Lord is near. And that you can rejoice always means, in spite of the circumstances, we can experience the nearness of God. We can experience a joy in spite of what is happening. I don't do that well. But I do.
Not many of us do. I could.
But I
honestly
do
say.
want. But I that is kind of my goal in life is to be centered when the excrement hits the fan.
Right.
When the excrement hits the oscillating machine.
Right.
I want to be able to be centered and to know the joy. Okay, God is here. God is with me. This isn't the final word.
Right.
And to live with that kind of hope is to me, that's what spirituality is.
Right. I've got a top 10 list here of things I want to throw out here to you guys. I don't know.
David Letterman.
David Letterman, top 10. All right. For all the old people out there listening, if we have any old people out there listening, they'll understand that. Alex,
before my
he
time.
doesn't even know who's Hogan's Heroes.
I know who it is, but go on.
used to give out a top 10 after many years of studying and talking with you guys. No, I did not go to divinity school, so I can't claim to be exposed to many of the teachings that you guys have. But for the simple person out there, you could put it in, summarize it in a little means like this. But first of all, number one, just like 10 Commandments, put God first. Okay. It is not country over God. It is put God first.
Preach.
It's believe in Jesus. All right. And when we say believe in Jesus, I also mean and really mean follow Jesus. Because in his teachings, he says 3, love others. 4, forgive others. 5, help the needy. Again, Jesus tells us to do that. Matthew 25. Where were you when I was naked and hungry?
On every page, it's every page, just about.
So you just talked about it. Number 6, walk humbly with God. God does not like arrogance. He does not. 7, you just said in Philippians, live a thankful life. Be thankful for what we have. We need to start off with our prayer, the prayer that Jesus taught us. It starts off with God, acknowledging God and giving thanks. That Alex, you mentioned it. You read in the scriptures. Read and try to learn from the Bible. God gives this to us as a pathway, but you need somebody to help you along the way. I did struggle with it. Many Bible studies to better understanding of it.
That's why we read it aloud in scripture, in worship. It's a community. It has to be read in the community.
And that personal relationship number 9 is pray. Pray to God. Ask for help. Come to God. He wants that personal relationship from you. He will help you. I really believe in that. And number 10 is sometimes the hardest one for me. I don't know about you guys, but we are told over and over again by Jesus, you got to trust in God. And that's hard to do sometimes when you see all the craziness around us today, to just trust in God. Does God have it? Are we supposed to figure it out on our own and fix it, Alex? Or we sit around and wait for God to come in and strike down like Sodom and Gomorrah? What are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. Comments, questions on that?
I just think that's, I wrote that down as Kevin's top 10. I think that's a really good exercise. I think that is a really good spiritual discipline. So if listeners out there, you haven't done that, I think that would be a really good exercise. I know these are what you believe, what you hope to believe, aspirations, however you want to think about it, or what's most important. I think that's a really great exercise. That's really good, Kevin. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I can't take all the credit, though. This is from reading many of the other great theologians, authors out there. We mentioned Ryan McLaren, Richard Rohr. N.T. Wright is one I'm reading right now, Simply Christian, Simply Hope. Some great authors, other theologians out there. I didn't just pull this out of thin air. This is from reading so much and coming up with other people's. It just works for me. Whatever works for you. Yeah. We're all different. Whatever works for you.
Someone said, as Christians, we don't all have to fall off the log the same way. Plenty of ways to fall off a log. Yeah. So there's plenty of ways to be Christian. I think there's the only limit to the ways of prayer are our imagination.
Okay.
Yep. I really believe that. And I say, what is it? What is it that connects you to the holy? Okay. Name that prayer, because that's exactly what it is.
All right. Concluding comments. We're going to wrap up today's episode. Alex.
We're about to go into Holy Week, and I would just say, wherever you're listening to this, it's not too late to become part of a church community. And perhaps Holy Week is that opportunity. People always ask, can I be a Christian without going to church? We've talked about that. I would just say, you're missing the fullness if you're not in a church community. You cannot be pastored by YouTube, by a live stream, or by a podcast. You can get information there. You can't be pastored by it. And when the rubber hits the road, when the excrement hits the fan, as Duke says, you're gonna want a community to walk with you. So I just think Holy Week is the perfect opportunity. If you've been on the fence about religion and institution, I get all of that, but it's not too late. Give it another go. I know the church has harmed people, but the church still does incredible good in the world. So Holy Week, it's a time to start again.
Yeah. It's a good word, Alex. I had a former church member text me this week and said, hey, I've got a really good close friends with a Catholic priest. Would you be interested in meeting once a week? And if you know someone, invite them to come and be a part of it. And I think, technology, if you're sick or infirmed, technology is a way to stay connected to the community. But it is a way to connect with people. Like I said, our conversations before and after our podcast is just so very meaningful. And so find that community where you can kind of go together in the same direction. You don't have to think alike, but the same direction of desiring to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. That's a very nice common direction to walk in. And to learn from each other as you seek to do that.
Well, great words of wisdom as always. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today out there. Everyone out there listening, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week. We'll try to. It's a busy week for Alex with Holy Week. Hopefully he's got time still to join us on next Tuesday or Wednesday. Hopefully it's not too busy. My last concluding remark is I'll just throw out this question. Duke, is it ever too late?
It's never too late to do the right thing.
There you go. I appreciate you very much. Thank you both for being here, and God bless, and come back and listen or watch us next week. Till then, goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Have a
Peace.
good one.